who's winning and who's up shit creek without a paddle. This is your stop for unbiased election projections with BS free talk, analysis, and one cranky politico's insight into the very future of the world you live in. Broadcasting from the gateway to the motherlode in Waterford, California. This is the Election Recon Podcast. And now, he's carpet-bombing partisan zealots back to the Stone Age by delivering cold, hard reality to the fanatics first class. Your host, Army veteran, political operative, and election junkie, Josh Whitfield.
Welcome to the first ever Election Recon Podcast. As the guy we paid to do that cool little intro thing said, I'm Josh Whitfield. I'll be your host, the voice of Election Recon. And it is just a relief to finally be here in the studio doing this podcast. It has been a day of Murphy's Law, and what would you expect with three washed-out old veterans trying to do a project like this, three political geeks and politicos that have no times on our hand because we came up with a great idea to start a project like this right in the middle of a presidential election cycle. Go figure. And we had all kinds of problems launching the podcast today, but we got it under control. It is currently, I kid you not, as I look at the clock, 10:25 p.m. for any of you European listeners out there, and we have a few apparently. That would be 22:25 for your military or your Zulu time. So we're going to get it done because I said, damn it, we promised a podcast and we're going to get it done for, because we just launched this project. Brand new project this week, Election Recon, and we're killing it. We are on fire with like 30-some viewers or subscribers. So we're underway. We don't care. We really don't. You're talking about three people working on this project who just don't give a flying rat's ass who listens to us and what people think. And if you're asking, then why are we doing this? We're going to tell you straight up why we are doing this. We're three people who couldn't be further apart, politically, despite working in the same industry. We do share a similar background coming from the military as much as an Air Force vet, a Marine Army hybrid, and an Army veteran can be. But we're three people who have respect for each other and what we've done in the business. We've all done work with each other before. And quite frankly, the three of us got together and we said, my goodness, as we opened some whiskey and I smoked cigars, and I watched the Marine Army hybrid partner of mine, Jeff Rockwell, try to smoke a cigar, but he can't handle it very well. And we poked fun at him. And the three of us, and Lauren drank wine or seltzer beer. I don't even know what that is. But anyway, we sat down and we said, when's the last time you just heard some straight up, no bias, no BS, no spin election analysis on anything? Where is just the straight up what is going on? Whether it's right or wrong, and our model that we put together could be wrong. We don't know. It's in its inaugural phase. People can tear it up in the comments. We don't care. You're not going to hurt our feelings. Trust me, the three of us used to get shot at for a living. We don't care. Freedom of speech, something we all three can agree on. Go ahead and say what you got to say. We're going to try our model out. We've tried to make it as non-biased as possible. It's 0% bias from the three of us. It's third-party data-driven, and obviously we understand that third-party data could be biased, but we've done our absolute best to try to put a predictive model together to predict an extremely chaotic thing, which is a presidential election cycle. So that's why we're doing this, because we sat down and we're sick and we're tired of Fox News, of CNN, of MSNBC, of all of it out there with just non-stop ideological spin on this election. And the three of us who worked in this business a combined 20 years, the three of us together, we're tired of it. It's just crap after crap after crap after crap. And if you feel that way, This podcast is for you. This podcast is for you. And we understand that we may be just 1 or 2% of the population out there that feels that way, but I suspect that that's not true. And I hope that this project catches fire. I hope this project catches fire, and it is an oasis. It is an oasis, a refreshing respite and drink of water against the desert of chaos that is this election cycle, that is this partisan, tribalistic, zealotry, divided, white noise desert of a country out there. I hope that we are an oasis of just talking facts. Anything that we bring up on this show is not going to be our personal political opinions. We're not going to talk about where we personally believe or what we want to happen. You're never going to hear what Josh Whitfield wants to happen in any of these elections. That's not what this podcast is about. That's not what this podcast is about. This is just simply trying to analyze where the election is for people who want just that. Straight, honest assessment, straight up, on the facts as we know them. The facts could be wrong. Our assessment of the facts could be wrong. But we're never going to give you bias. Never going to give you BS. We're going to give it to you straight up here at the Election Recon Podcast. My two partners, I haven't introduced them in our weekly videos yet, but Jeff Rockwell, what can I say about this guy? My goodness, I could say a lot. This guy, kind of a hybrid Marine Army guy, was in the Marines, came into the Army's enlisted guy like me, combat soldier, combat wounded soldier, Marine. I guess he can be an ex-soldier, but he can't be an ex-Marine. I think that's how it goes. I don't know. But he's largely responsible for all the technical difficulties we have. He's largely responsible for putting on our first map graphics that we put out 725 instead of 925 this week because, you all know Marines, okay? And we're gonna have a little fun on this podcast. It's 3 vets. So any true veteran out there listening to this podcast, the interbranch shit talk is high. It's high. And it's fun, and like brothers and sisters, the 3 of us argue. But if you hear me talk crap about other branches, because the Army, we all know, is the real branch of the United States Armed Forces, and frankly the world, it's all in good fun. And obviously, those of us who wear a uniform care deeply about each other, as we are, just trashing each other all day long. That's just how it is to be a soldier, Marine, airman, seaman, whatever. So Jeff Rockwell has been eating the crowns from his Marine side all week and has just technically screwed everything up, even though we depend on him for everything, which is his Army side when he finally gets it through. Jeff Rockwell, great guy. This guy, this is the only time we're ever going to tell you where we are politically, because we can already see, we talked about it before the podcast, we can already see where this is going. Oh, you're biased this way, or I looked you up and you're registered this way, or you work for so-and-so, and blah, 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 blah. We're just going to tell you, because we're never going to talk about it again. We're never going to tell you who we're voting for or what we believe in terms of the politics. That's out there. That's out there for you guys to go. Go turn on CNN, go turn on MSNBC, Fox News, whatever you want, and get the content you want. There's all kinds of people out there, great people. I'm not tearing any of them down. They're out there, and they got election video analysis videos of why the Democrats are going to have a blue wave, and you got people out there on YouTube and social media about why Republicans are going to have a red tsunami or whatever. If you want that, go to that. If you want to be made to feel better, you can find the content. We're just going to give it straight up. We're going to call spade a spade, whether we're right or wrong. That's what we're going to do. So Jeff Rockwell, he is a right-wing nut job. What would you expect from a United States Marine first before he got smart and came over to the Army? Jeff, great guy, MAGA-loving, Trump supporter, very far on the right side of the spectrum. That's Jeff. Jeff does a lot of our content management and our social media and all that stuff. Doesn't really have a big hand in the election prognostication stuff, though he did help build the model. He works more on the comm side in the political world. Lauren Mayfield, great kid. She is a little younger than Jeff and I, Air Force veteran, also a combat veteran over in the Air Force, and she is a socialist, pinko, commie, liberal, and we love her to death. Brilliant. works in Democratic politics, and she is, she's awesome. We're going to try to get her. We're trying to give her the courage to come on the podcast. We would love it to be a two-person podcast. Lauren works in campaigns like I have worked in the past, and she's great. Myself, I am a libertarian at heart and soul, and if you cut my veins open, it bleeds a libertarian purple. I've taken all those political tests online that people say, take this, and we want to find out where you really are, because that's where I really am. I am a libertarian who's registered as a Republican in the United States. Those are the facts, because we want to be transparent. And of the three of us, like the other two on this team, I too think I'm the smartest person in the room, largely because I, am an Army guy, and the ASVAB test results between the three of us clearly show that. I don't care what the Air Force standards are. That being said, that's who we are. This is the team. We wanted to spend about 10 minutes just introducing ourselves to you, the listener, what our objective is, why we're doing this, and we swear to everything sacred and holy in the world, legitimately, that we hope that we can truly be that one spot you can come in your commute, whenever, right after your book club, coming home from church, whatever it is that you do. And you can just get 20 to 40 minutes once a week with this podcast, and then on our content daily, just a straight up analysis of where this election's going and what's going on to try to cut through the unending noise and nonsense out there. That's the purpose of Election Recon. 3 cranky veterans, 3 cranky politicos who are just trying to push through the zealotry and give you the facts. And we hope that's what we deliver. So starting in on it, I'm going to start right now with the state of the race as we see it. Our model, as we've talked about in our update videos this week, our model is put together. It's unique compared to the other models out there. It's not quite as advanced and sophisticated and running as Nate Silver's 538 model. Nate Silver, obviously the standard bearer in the prognostication, data analysis, and statistical business. And we're not pretending that we're Nate Silver or we're 538. We're not. We're not pretending that we are anything other than amateurs in the prediction business. Where we're not amateurs is in the political business, where we have a tremendous amount of experience running campaigns. So we do have a background, and we do know what we're talking about in terms of what's going on. Me personally, I have worked on everything from president to dog catcher. Congress, Senate, state, local, county supervisor, city council, does not matter. And so is Lauren, and so has Jeff. We have a wide variety of experience in elections. And so we think we're going to put our election experience, what we've seen and what we've experienced on the ground, into analyzing what's going on here. And we put a model together. We put a model together that's about 1/3 driven by raw polling data. And we didn't want raw polling data to have a majority hold of our model. And when we run our simulations on the computer, we didn't want, when the math was crunched, because we understand polling is fallible. It's a snapshot in time. And the three of us don't expect, like most people out there who see a poll, that's where the race is. It's got a margin of error. But anybody who knows polling knows that you have to get, even with your margin of error, and I'm being real layman here. I'm not getting down into the nitty-gritty because Jeff and Lauren will throw things at me. But the point I'm trying to make is your poll is only as good as what the electorate might end up being. So if you're really taking, it's guesswork. It's educated guesswork, to be sure. You're looking at trends and all this other stuff, but that's where 2016 went wrong for the prognosticators. A lot of people out there are like, there's a conspiracy that was all ramped up against the president, and that's why he won, and all this stuff, because they were just trying to drive the president's numbers down and all this and that. It's just not true. It's a business. These people are trying to make money accurately guessing the polls. Now, obviously, there's been some pollsters out there that have not been in good faith. It's really easy to start catching people who are acting in bad faith in the polling business. And you can tell pretty quickly who's full of crap and who's trying to do the right job. And the reality is that the vast majority of pollsters out there, they're trying to get it right because their reputation is staked on it. They don't want to be known as somebody. No one's going to pay a pollster an exorbitant amount of money to be wrong all the time. It's just not going to happen that way. So it wasn't that the pollsters were intentionally wrong in 2016, and I'm going to get into it just a little bit when I compare 2016 to this race here in 2020. They're just wrong because they did not get the electorate right. The sample of the electorate in most of the polls in 2016 was off. And it wasn't off by that much, but it was off by enough in certain states where they missed. They missed, like Ohio. They missed Ohio by +5 on the average. And that's bad. That's a huge miss. That's an outside the margin of error miss. They blew that one. Ohio went for President Trump way stronger than anybody could have ever predicted based off the polling. Okay, but they hit other things right. They didn't miss the popular vote all by that much. Hillary Clinton did win the popular vote, and all the polls said she was going to do that. So I think we got to keep it in perspective when it comes to polling. So our model, 1/3 polling, and we don't want knee-jerk reactions coming in our model from an outlier poll that if all the polling has it 1, 2, 3 points, and all of a sudden next week somebody drops a +12 poll for Trump or Biden. We don't want a knee-jerk reaction in any of our races. The second third of our model is statistically driven by voter reg. What's going on? Voter reg. How are the candidates doing fundraising? We've plugged in these local, what we call the environmentals. We have these environmental factors for each race. It took us a very long time to put the model together. We're looking at fundraising. We can plug in when new fundraising reports come out. We sit there and we input all the fundraising into the model. Other factors like labor endorsements, what we see the demographics being in the individual districts. We're hoping that our model doesn't make the miss what other models did in 2016, which was really miss the Rust Belt and that blue collar swing to President Trump that really gave him the Rust Belt and the Midwest stronger than what anyone thought in 2016. And that was because I don't think they were looking down at the district. You had people out there screaming at him. Michael Moore, who's from that area, was like, I'm home. I'm in Michigan. I'm in Pennsylvania. I'm telling you, what you're polling is not what's going on the ground. And he was right. And no one heeded his warning because, he's Michael Moore. What are you going to do? But my point is Michael Moore was right, and he had the pulse of the working class man in the Midwest. And if someone from the Hillary Clinton campaign paid attention to that guy, Hillary Clinton's probably president of the United States today. So our model's trying to find a way to not miss it down to a congressional district or a state legislative district level. We're trying to get our model all the way down to the county. We just don't have time to get it done between now and Election Day. So that's how detailed, that's kind of how our model takes a look at how detailed the model is. The last third, we look at what our grassroots elections experience tells us, which we're looking at trends from the last two elections. So we're looking at the voter trends in all of those districts. How did they swing one way or the other from 2016 and 2012, which were the last two elections? Was there a trend this way? Was there a trend the other way? And based on the demographics and the environmentals, how our model is set up in a way that it adjusts to the trend. So it'll weight a certain trend more based on other data or input that's coming in, and it'll take weight away from another trend if the demographics shift. So obviously, if we're starting to see a minority vote higher in a district, we know that the minority vote did not swing to the right, it swung harder to the left. Our model would then move that district or that area more to the left. If we're seeing what we're seeing right now with an increase in voter registration numbers for Republicans in areas they had not previously been as strong in voter registration, our model is going to shift to the right and adjust those demographics. So it's complicated in that sense, really not a complicated construct, but that's how our model works. And I'm sure I just bored everyone to tears, but we wanted to explain to you where our model is and how we come up with this in 10 minutes or less. And I'm told I'm 42 seconds over. So that's kind of how our model works. We're going to talk more about our model as we go on because everybody wants to know the philosophy and the methodology and all that stuff behind it. And then more podcasts will get into that, especially if we're right at the end of the election. We're really going to toot our horns. And if we're wrong, we'll probably do 5 minutes on it first week of November. I'm kidding. But anyway, let's take a look at the state of the race as we know it right now. The state of the race, just looking at the Real Clear Politics polling averages where they bring all the polls together. Biden is up nationally 6.9% on the polling average. He's up in the top battleground states 3.6% on the average. The betting odds, for those of you that care about stuff like that, has him 53 to 46. The betting odds have nothing to do with our model. We don't look at who's betting on who to win. There's nothing scientific about that in our opinion. We do take a look at, and why we bringing up Real Clear Politics from realclearpolitics.com, which is a great resource and website for polling and everything going on. It has everything right there. Is Real Clear Politics this time has done a 2020 versus 2016 comparison because they understand, I think like we understand, that there's a risk that we're still missing the same type of stuff we missed in 2016 for 2020. So I really like that RCP has done this. They're showing us where the polling is now, and the top battlegrounds have Biden-Harris up 3.6%, where as compared to 2016, it was 1.4% for the Democrats, giving Biden 2.2% better in the margin than Hillary Clinton was in the top battleground states as of today. That can shift. It will shift, and who knows what it's going to be like by Election Day, but we should remember that absentee ballots for most states are going to begin to drop next week sometime, first week of October. And this is going to be largely a mail-in election, no matter who wants it, whether you agree with it or not. That's the fact. That's what it's going to be. So an overwhelming majority of the votes in this country are going to be mailed in. That's the way the voting and elections were already going anyway. But the coronavirus and the situation that the world is today, more votes are going to be mailed in than people going to the polls, and it's going to be bigger than it was in 2016. That's just fact. That's just the facts. So it is important that we do look at how Biden is doing today and how Trump is doing today in the election, because those snapshots will probably be relevant to people who are voting early. And early voting is turning out to be the king. And so we do want to pay attention to that. So we also look at favorability ratings. And this is a big one. This is a big one, and it affects our model a great deal. How voters are saying they view the candidates matters. And in 2016, it was Clinton up 7. She had a 7-point higher favorability rating than Donald Trump. Joe Biden's at 16.1, and you haven't even seen that guy on the campaign trail other than a Zoom video or Facebook or FaceTime. He's still got a 16.1. So everyone's out there trashing Joe Biden about this dude's never to be seen. He's not, where is this guy? He's got to get out there and start campaigning. That's probably true. He's probably milking it for as long as it's worth. But the Biden campaign understands that this is not a referendum on Joe Biden. This is not a referendum on Barack Obama. 4 years ago is ancient history in politics and in the American mindset. And it's about the right here, the right now. And this election, make no mistake about it, will be a referendum on the current state of the country and the current president of the United States. They always are. Not every presidential election is about just the man in office, but it is a referendum on the current state of governance in the country. And it's important that the favorabilities are factored in. Advantage Joe Biden there right now. However, let's not forget, let's take that with a grain of salt. Donald Trump was a very unpopular guy going into 2016, and he still scrounged up enough votes to win the election. So even though right now I'm telling you that, yes, as of today, we believe Joe Biden is in the lead in this race, that doesn't mean he will be the winner on election night. It's a very fluid thing, elections. And we still have 2 political eternities and 1 eon in the next 30 plus days till election day. A lot of time to go. This debate coming up on Tuesday night could shift things. It's going to be impactful. It's going to be meaningful, if only it's the first time we're going to see Joe Biden live in a very, very, very long time, not behind his computer. And, I don't know if it's a good thing that expectations are so low for Joe Biden for Donald Trump. You get the feeling that as long as Joe Biden doesn't make a major gaffe, it doesn't matter what's going to be said between these two guys. Joe Biden will be declared the winner. That's the feeling you get. I don't know if that's going to be the case. Obviously, the media and the zealots out there who have already predetermined who's going to win regardless of what happens already have their talking points ready to go. But I'm talking about in the minds of the American voter, the expectations for Joe Biden are not high. And Trump is going to go out there and do what Trump does. There's no doubt about what Trump's going to do. We're not going to see a surprise from Trump in the terms of how he debates or acts. I think it's going to be 2016 redux. But let's not forget that in 2016, those debates, plus the Comey surprise late, probably delivered the presidency to Donald Trump. And a lot of people out there will be like, professionals in my field go, no, stop it. The debates don't matter. They're frivolous. They matter. They matter to the undecided voter, and even though that number is smaller and smaller every year, there are voters out there who have not yet made up their mind, no matter how small that group is, and that small group could be just enough to give somebody the presidency over the other guy. So the debates do matter, and Tuesday is going to be a very, very pivotal and important night in this presidential race. So Biden's in the lead. We believe Biden's in the lead. The polls believe he's in the lead, up almost 7 points. And in our model, in our state of the race for president, right now we have the race 291 to 247. Biden up over Trump, 291 to 247. Our model is actually more favorable to President Trump than most of the other predictive models out there. And while it looks closer, that's only because our model has one or two more states projected to go to Trump than maybe another model. So you can look, there's a lot of great websites out there, election projection, electoral vote, 270 to win. You can look at a bunch of people's models, and the models are all over the place. A lot of the models have Biden into the 300s, somewhere deep 350, but you got to remember, you take away Florida and North Carolina, and our model would have Biden in 350. You give Trump Pennsylvania and Michigan, or Pennsylvania, Wisconsin, and our model would say Trump is predicted to be reelected. And I'm telling you this just to give everybody a sense of how close this election really is right now, despite the electoral vote count numbers. And we got to remember, as compared to 2016 for the presidential race, we got to remember. Republicans feel like they just whooped ass from coast to coast, border to border. Trump had a huge electoral vote win. That is true. Trump did have a huge electoral vote win, but he did not have a very big win when it comes down to votes. That's just the truth. That's just the truth. 107,330 votes was the margin of victory in the three states that put Trump over the top: Pennsylvania, Michigan, Wisconsin. 68,236 votes in Pennsylvania, 11,837 votes in Michigan, 27,257 votes in Wisconsin. So basically, if you pool those three states together, because Trump won a little bigger in Pennsylvania than he did in Wisconsin than he did in Michigan, which Michigan was just razor thin. Pretty much, you flipped 6,000 votes in Michigan, the size of a small town. You flipped 6,000 votes in Michigan in 2016. Michigan goes to Clinton. Trump's still the president. But let's go to Wisconsin. And you flip, I don't know, 14,500 votes in Wisconsin, plus that 6,000 vote in Michigan. So if you flip one small town in Michigan and one medium-sized town in Wisconsin and one other state, anywhere in the country. Hillary Clinton is president of the United States. That is how razor thin 2016 was. No matter who tells you, no matter what Kool-Aid you're drinking out of, the blue Kool-Aid on the left or the red Kool-Aid on the right, I'm telling you, that election was infinitesimally so close, and it could be that close again. You add up Pennsylvania, Michigan, Wisconsin, 107,330 votes, and you change just 53,665 votes in a country of 400 plus million people. Infinitesimally small. That's how close the election was in 2016. 53,665 votes in 3 states hands the election over to the other person. So don't be one of these people. The 3 of us working in politics, we hate hearing this. It doesn't matter if I vote. It doesn't matter if I vote. The people have no say. It's just the money. The oligarchs are in charge. All this stuff. That may be true in other countries. That may be true in Europe. That may be true in South America. It is not true in the United States of America. And I'm telling you, there were people ripping their hair out in 2016 at the DNC looking at that number, 53,665, going, what could we have done? What little minutia of a change in our ground game could we have done to get 53,665 more votes in 3 states? That's the truth of how close 2016 was, despite what the Electoral College will tell you. Your vote does matter. Whether you're Republican, Democrat, Libertarian, Green Party, Independent, it doesn't matter. Your vote matters. Now, there's going to be people in California where I'm from, Republicans in California where I'm from, that go, oh, my vote doesn't matter, this, that, or whatever. Yeah, your state's probably going left. There's probably a better chance of an asteroid striking somewhere on Earth than Republicans winning a statewide election in California this year. But don't ever act like your vote doesn't matter. It's your birthright. It's your birthright to go vote. And your vote doesn't matter if you don't use it. That's a fact. Think about that. As veterans and political operatives, that's something that we're very passionate about. Go vote. But don't just vote. Understand what you're voting on. Listen. Make informed decisions. I'm in a little bit of a mood tonight because it's late. The state of the race as we have it, as I said. Our model has it 291 for Biden, 247 for Trump. This week, we flipped Florida and North Carolina in our model for Trump. Those are razor thin. Iowa, in Trump's favor, razor thin. 109 electoral votes in our model are tilt. We rate our states safe, likely, lean, and tilt. Tilt being 1.5% difference in our model's projections. When we run the simulations, the average comes out. We run the average. You know, you got models like 538. I don't think their supercomputer over there ever stops running. We run 10,000 simulations. We're trying to get it up to 50,000 so we get a more accurate result. But our model, 10,000 simulations, and then we take the average out of that, and that's how we come up with the final, when we update, we do the daily updates. 109 electoral votes. At 291 and 247 in our model says this thing is razor thin. Our tilt states right now, Florida, 29 electoral votes. North Carolina, 15 electoral votes. Maine 2nd Congressional District, 1. Pennsylvania, 20 electoral votes. Michigan, 16. Wisconsin, 10. Iowa, 6. Nebraska, 2nd. That's another 1 electoral vote. Maine and Nebraska break their electoral votes up by congressional districts instead of winner take all. And Arizona, 11 electoral votes. That's not even counting the leans. Which, how many lean states did we see go in a different direction in 2016? You add up the lean states, and that's another 92 electoral votes on top of the 109 our model says. Make no mistake, folks, the state of the race of 2020 is this election is still close. Could we see a wave of some side form or another? Yes. But I don't think it's going to happen in the way that one side or the other thinks is going to happen. There's nothing in the data that shows us that Republicans are going to stay home or Democrats are going to stay home, which generally is a requirement for a wave election to come, is one side is suppressed or depressed and the other side is motivated at historic levels. Here's the facts that I'm trying to give you. It's not 2016. It's also not 2018. It's not 2018, and we've seen this. So Democrats that are out there who feel as good about themselves right now as they did in 2016, I have a hard reality check for you. You lost in 2016. And Republicans who thought there's no way that the MAGA train would be threatened, you got a reality check in 2018. The fact of the matter is this isn't 2016 or 2018, and the electorates are not going to look the same as those two last elections. In 2018, the Mueller investigation was going on, and the Republican turnout in this country across the board was depressed, and Democratic turnout was higher, which we always see in a midterm of a president's first year. The party out of power in the White House always does better. The pendulum swings in the United States, always. This is not 2018. We see the primary numbers. The primary turnout in an virtually uncontested presidential primary on the Republican side has impressive turnout numbers. Donald Trump's base has gone nowhere. No matter what anyone tells you. This isn't even polling data. This is actual voting data from the primaries. And this is where, if you guys want to take a look at it, this is where the Stony Brook model, the predictive model from Stony Brook University, comes into play, because primary turnout does have a statistical direct correlation into the general election. And the Republicans' primary turnouts have been just fine. There have been some outliers and exceptions to the rule in certain districts and states, but for the most part, nationally, the Republican Party primary turnout is fine. The enthusiasm is still there at 2016 levels. I believe that. Our model believes that. Jeff and Lauren believe that, despite our diverging personal political views. I suspect it's going to be a close election. Our model suggests that it's going to be a close election. Could the polls be missing stuff? Absolutely. Could there be a silent majority out there for you Republicans? Absolutely, there could be. Could the polls be missing it? Yes. The polls could also be missing a resurgence in the enthusiasm of the left. I certainly believe the left is going to vote at higher numbers in 2020 than they did in 2016. But it is also possible, while that is true, it is also possible that the right comes out in higher numbers. Here's what we know from the data. Here's the facts. Trump is doing better in 2020 with minorities, Latinos, African Americans. He's doing better. Marginally. It's nothing to go, wow, that's insane. But he's doing better. He's doing better with whites across the country. Biden is right now in the polling average, polling lower with white voters who still represent by themselves a majority block of voters, a majority minority. The biggest block of voters is what I'm trying to say in the country. Biden's doing worse than Hillary Clinton was. That has to be a warning sign for the Biden campaign. What has to be a warning sign for the Trump campaign is Trump is on his way to doing historically bad with women. I'm talking, it was already historically bad in 2016. And he is doing historically bad with women up past 20 points. And women in this country for years have been on a march of outvoting men. There are more women voters in the electorate than there are male voters in the electorate, and that's why it matters by gender. And Trump is not doing well according to the polling and according to our model as well, which is buffered, we have a buffer against the polling, our model agrees that Trump is not doing well with women. That's a huge problem for the Trump campaign. Will it shift? I don't know. That's just where it's at right now. Taking a look at our other races, since we spent so much time today on the presidential race, we're going to take a look at the U.S. Senate. The U.S. Senate, we currently have our model 51-49, but this is razor thin as well. We have 51 seats projected for the Democrats. We have Democrats picking up seats in Arizona, Colorado, Iowa, Maine, North Carolina. We have seen a strong shift of wins in South Carolina against Lindsey Graham, battling a Democratic campaign, which has been phenomenal in forcing Republican money away from other battleground states and Jaime Harrison. If Harrison's campaign loses in South Carolina, they will be able to absolutely hang their hat and say, we forced what was once thought to be a safe Republican reelect into the trenches. And we forced the Republicans to redirect money. Same thing could be said for the Republicans battling for a Senate seat in Michigan, which was once thought to be a safe seat. Republicans making big headway in Michigan, and no one's talking about it. Mark my words today. Saturday, the 26th of September, it is entirely possible a Republican sits in the U.S. Senate from Michigan by the end of the election. That's how close it is. It's certainly within the realm of possibility, and no stretch of the imagination. It's going to be very close. It's razor thin between Teresa Greenfield and Joni Ernst in Iowa. Susan Collins, despite not looking very promising for her, she's an institution in Maine. And it's hard to beat incumbents. So who knows what's going to happen there. Astronaut Mark Kelly, Democrat from Arizona, running an excellent campaign right now in Arizona against Martha McSally, the incumbent, despite losing in 2018. She was appointed to fill an empty seat. Her campaign, not great. Has not been. All the information we have out of Arizona, everything we're hearing out of Arizona is the two campaigns couldn't be any more different. Kelly is running a rock show, and he has zero political experience other than working for NASA and the military in his career. And McSally, her campaign's just not great. Her likability, not great. She's underwater. It's not good to be underwater in your likability and be an incumbent and hope to win. That's the state of the race for the Senate. We're watching Colorado, Montana. Montana, the Dakotas and Montana, they're very interesting, these northern mountain states, these Midwest mountain west states. Montana, which we believe is going to go to Donald Trump by a significant margin. We currently have the House race in Montana, which is at large because they only have one congressman. We have that moving towards the Democrats. And in the Senate, you have Daines versus Bullock. Bullock, a very popular historical last name from that area. So we see a lot of split ticket voting up there. So it's going to be very interesting to watch Montana. 51-49 Democrats over Republicans right now, but that's how it's close. If it's 50-50, just to remind everybody, it goes to whoever is the vice president of the United States. If it's 50-50, the vice president will break the tie. For the House, we have a 236-199. 236-199. A little better for Republicans than when our model first started out earlier this year. Very close. You have close races in Minnesota, where Republicans are making huge inroads in districts. There's in the Minnesota 7th, which we flipped from tilt Democrat to tilt Republican, which was actually a lean Democrat state when our model first started. Not state, but district when our model first started. 15-term incumbent Democrat in that district, and it is in our model favored to go to its Republican challenger. You have a seat in California, the California 25th, which was won, and this goes back to how well Republicans have done, not just in the primaries, but they have done very well in special elections this year, and that's something else that we look at. Doesn't always correlate, but it does have enough significance that we take a look at it. Mike Garcia, this is a seat in California that was vacated by the Katie Hill scandal, and she resigned, and this is her seat. She took that from Republican Steve Knight in 2018 during the blue wave. She vacates her seat due to scandal, and it's Assemblywoman Christy Smith, Democratic Assemblywoman, who's won inside that district a higher legislative office, versus Mike Garcia, Republican, who has come in and his campaign has been excellent. And for the first time, and no one can remember, like people had to open old history textbooks, Republicans flipped a seat from blue to red in California, in a state where they're struggling to even become, I think Republicans just crossed voter registration again, where they're actually the second party and not the third party against decline to state. The California 21st, we have a rematch race where Democrat incumbent T.J. Cox, who beat the former Congressman David Valadao in that seat, we have T.J. Cox projected to lose. In deep blue states, there are signs of life for the Republican Party. Across the country, Democrats are doing better. Democrats do not appear to be in danger right now today of losing the House of Representatives by any stretch of the imagination. They're holding enough seats where they need to hold. As a matter of fact, in Texas, in the Texas 22nd, 23rd, 24th, I could be wrong, could be the 23rd, 24th, 25th. But in that little arc of congressional districts in Big Red Texas, Democrats outperforming Republicans and could pick up 3 seats, if not 6 in Texas. There are 6 Republican seats at risk right now in the state of Texas to Democrats. Democrats in Texas for years have been up and coming. They got a great operation out there, and they are threatening Republicans in a state that they feel safe. This is why we call this election the desert of chaos, because all the norms have been thrown out. They were thrown out in 2016, and they're thrown out now in 2020. Areas where everything was assumed to be safe are up on their heels because of where society is today. People are taking a look. Demographics have changed. People have moved around so much in 4 years. We don't think there's any chance of Democrats losing the House. However, it should be noted that when you add up all the lean and tilt seats in our model, there's enough there. Republicans would have to run an inside straight. It would have to be a huge Republican tsunami. I guess it is not statistically impossible. But it's highly unlikely Republicans take the House, according to our model. That's the state of the race for the U.S. House of Representatives. Looking at governors, this is where we see a lot of good news in terms of if you're an incumbent. Seems like most voters out there in their states like their governors for the states that are up for election. Those are New Hampshire, Vermont, Maryland, North Carolina, West Virginia, Indiana, Missouri, North Dakota, Montana, Utah, and Washington. We're looking at one pickup, and that's going to be because the outgoing Democratic Governor Bullock is running for Senate in Montana. And we think the Republican candidate is favored to win. It's currently tilt in favor of the Republicans. So is New Hampshire, tilt in favor of the Republicans. But everyone else pretty much going to keep their governors intact. So we're looking at really a pickup of one for Republicans, or probably more likely in our model statistically right now is that everything just stays the same. So we're looking at 27 Republicans in the governor's mansions across the country to 23 Democrats, according to our model. We're taking a look at state legislatures. I'm not going to get into them now because that deserves a whole podcast on its own, because it's critically important who controls state governments in the United States. because we're in the middle of a census. And when that census is over, legislative lines in this country will be redrawn for the next decade, and that could dramatically affect the balance of power in this country. That's why everyone talks about gerrymandering. That's why so many of these gerrymandered districts go to court and they're struck down or upheld or arguments are made and whatever or whatnot. It's going to be tremendously important who is in control at the state level. We're working on getting you those maps next week. But right now, it looks like somewhere in the number of 27 to 31 state governments could be in control of Republican hands. And the media out there is going to have you believe that this is the Republican Party is a dying entity. In 2016, how many stories did we see the other way around? The surprising loss, all the money spent, the Democratic Party is in disarray. They're over and they're done with. Baloney. The biggest women's march in the history of marches happened like 18 minutes later. They marched everywhere in the country. The Democratic liberal movement's not dead, nor is the Republican right-wing movement. Our country has not been this divided since the mid-1800s, ideologically. Both movements are energized. Both movements are out and about, and this is going to be a very, very, very consequential election. Let's just hope that we can all accept the results one way or the other. That's the American thing to do. I've been on campaigns where I've won. I've been on campaigns where I've lost. They've been heartbreaking. They've been jubilant. That's often what happens in democracy. That's the nature of a democratic republic. When the people have the power, we sometimes lose. And the American thing to do, and this is my last point because I'm being told I'm over time, but the American thing to do, no, scratch that. The democratic, Western, civilized world thing to do is if you lose, you dust yourself off. You don't cry about it. You dust yourself off, and you get back out there and start convincing people why it was the wrong decision so you can win in 2 or 4 years later. The three of us who work on this show, we've been out there. We've been to countries where decisions of power are not made at the ballot box or by the stroke of a pen or the will of the people. We've been out there where it's decided by the pull of the trigger and the lead round that goes through human flesh. And that is just straight up the truth. That is not the country we live in, despite the social discourse that we are having today. No side in this country. For those of us who have fought for it, the vast majority anyway, I don't want to speak for all veterans, but I do believe the vast majority of veterans do believe in this. Nobody should be trying to exert intimidation, power, influence, terror by the use of force when we're determining which way we go. We've had all these presidents, we've had all these elections, all these Congresses, over 100 different Congresses in the history of our country. And the pendulum has swung. We've had liberal Congresses, conservative Congresses, conservative Supreme Courts, liberal Supreme Courts. And you know what? The sun still rose the next day. Yes, you can be pissed off. Yes, you can be fired up. Yes, use your voice. Yes, First Amendment. That's the American way. But we don't decide things with violence. We don't decide things with violence in this country or hatred or racism or the threat. We got to get there. Because despite how Lauren, Jeff, and I feel about the world, and those are three very different perspectives. Three very different perspectives. We all agree on that. And if the three of us, with our political views, can agree on that, and I'm not saying don't be an activist. I'm not saying don't be passionate. I'm not saying don't go protest. I'm not saying any of that. I'm saying if this country ever has a chance again to stand united, if this country ever has a chance to heal as a nation ever in the future, despite who comes out of this current ideological divide in our country, it will be because we can dust ourselves off and go back to the work of being American, which is convincing the other side. There's nothing more American than sitting down over a beer, wine with your ladies at book club, or whiskey with your buds at the bar, or whatever or whatnot, and teaching them and deciding and trying to educate them your way is the right way, whether they agree with you or not or make fun of you. That's America. We got to talk to each other, even if it's passionate, but we have to accept election results. And that's what we believe here at Election Recon. That's why we are going to give it to you straight up and down and just try to be the one spot, that oasis in the desert of chaos, for you to come in, no matter if you are a pussy hat wearing liberal or a MAGA hat wearing conservative, or somewhere in between, or you're just somebody who just stumbled in here by accident. From Finland or Scotland or Canada or whatever, and you're just trying to find some straight up analysis on what's going on in the election. That is what this project is about. But we ultimately hope, and in this first podcast where we are going against our constructs, where we are sharing a little bit of our passion, we hope that the world and the nation and everyone in it, win, lose, or draw, whoever that is after November the 3rd, can treat each other with human dignity. Because those of us who have served overseas, my goodness gracious, have we seen what the lack of human dignity on a wide scale does to nations. This has been Election Recon. I'm Josh Whitfield. Join us next week for the Election Recon Podcast. Like, subscribe, follow, and share. Comment away on YouTube, Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook. It's at Election Recon, at Election Recon, at Election Recon. Please like, subscribe, follow, and share. Help us get this project off the ground. Help. No one can advertise or move this thing better than you telling people, hey, you know what? I found a place where you can go and just get straight talk about the election. They're not going to try to tell you right, left, middle, up, down, sideways. They're just going to say, here's what's going on. This is what the election looks like today. I'm Josh Whitfield. Thanks for joining us. This has been the Election Recon Podcast.